Hey everyone, how you doing today? Topic number 2 with Mr. Greg Dickerson is we're going to talk about Janet Yellen, what she could mean being a labor economist. I think there are some, I just think there's some things we need to appreciate because she is coming at her job, her situation with a certain mindset. And if you can understand what she is going to be doing, because she's without question very powerful, it could really make some investment decisions. So how you doing this morning, Greg?
Doing great. How about you?
I'm doing well, man. So when you think about Janet Yellen and her very powerful position, what do you think of when you think of Janet Yellen in that seat and what she's going to be doing for the next couple of years at least?
Yeah, it's going to be hard to say. Obviously, we know that her monetary policy thesis is very liberal. In other words, print and spend, and don't worry about the debt. So we know that she's very liberal in terms of how much debt she thinks the nation can sustain.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a modern monetary theorist, but not necessarily publicly or vocally. The interesting thing is she's not alone. So understand what economists are and how they view what they do.
Mm-hmm.
It's political. Okay. They're not capitalists. They're not entrepreneurial. They're political. So
Mm-hmm.
they're viewing everything through a political lens, not necessarily through an economic lens. And they're viewing things through the policies of the leaders that they serve versus what's real on Main Street. Because most of these economists have never created a company, never created a job, and
Amen to that.
have never, created money and
Yeah.
created opportunity. So they have a very different perspective than an entrepreneur does, than a business individual does, and things like that. So what her viewpoints are and what she wants to do and thinks are going to be the results of the actions oftentimes are not where things need to be focused and what is going to really make a difference and make an impact out on the streets.
Yeah, I think there's two things to think about when you look at an economist. And again, my undergrad was in economics. It was in a I loved it. I loved studying it. I got an MBA, so it's kind of in my sweet spot. Every economist I've met, and I've been lucky enough to sit in many different sessions, never with Janet, but with other powerful economists and hear them talk. Every one of them, without question, kind of has their number one thing they track. And if you can figure out what that is by them either telling you, some will tell you, others won't because they know it's a bias. It's an unnatural bias. But Janet Yellen's very clear. She's publicly stated that she's a labor economist. So what does that mean to our economy? That means Janet Yellen is going to be ultimately fixated on job creation.
Right. But see, the problem is politicians don't know how to create jobs. They're not job creators. She thinks government can create jobs, and government doesn't create jobs. Government creates bureaucracy. So, and here's just an easy analogy to, show you what I'm talking about. So when this happened, all of the Treasury and Fed and, economic officials came out and economists, and what they say? Well, let's throw trillions of dollars at the stock market. Did that create a job?
No.
Did that create one job?
No.
Okay, our GDP, maybe it did, a few investment firms hiring, to help move the money.
Yeah.
But now they're all fussing and complaining, the investment bankers, because they're getting work too hard.
Yeah, they got to work 90 hours a week.
Yeah, cry me a river. You're a Goldman Sachs intern and you're going to whine about the hours you're working. Do you know how many hours I put in as a restaurant kitchen manager starting my career for 30 grand a year? More than those guys.
Yeah.
And I did it because I knew the opportunities it would create for me, the, knowledge that I was gaining. Anyways. That's a sidetrack.
Yeah.
So
come back, Ray. Come back.
That really irritated me. The GDP is about $20 trillion, 21 trillion dollars. Okay. So when this hit, we immediately eliminated 10, 20% of the GDP just by shutting down.
Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe let's just say 30. Okay. Well, that's $6 trillion. Okay. So how much is that a month? That's $500 billion a month to get to 6 trillion a year, right? What if we took those $2 trillion and just doled it out to all the businesses instead of shutting them down to keep them open and keep everybody employed, even if you weren't selling anything or doing anything? Just keep the money flowing so that your normal gross receipts that you would normally receive came in instead of throwing it to the stock market, came in, you kept everybody employed, kept everything going, forget the unemployment, just do that. How many jobs do you think that would have created?
Well, it would have saved lots of jobs.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they don't know how to do it. Government doesn't know. The Federal Reserve Chairman and the Treasury Secretary, again, they've never created a job in their life. They don't know how to create jobs. That's not what government does.
I totally agree. I agree with every word of that. That said, doesn't change the fact that Janet Yellen calls herself a labor economist. So what tools does she have, and you can expect to come? First off, you have the beauty about Janet Yellen being in this position is she's not some Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or some other Wall Streeter that came over that had a job that we knew in title, but we never knew what they did. Janet Yellen has a very public history, and she was around in the Great Recession, and she carries forward some of those lessons. And the beauty is we have a gap, right? She was in a powerful position, a gap, and now she's back. She has plenty of speeches that she has given in that interim that tell us what she's going to do. And one of the biggest things I've taken away from those speeches is she thinks they didn't spend enough. That is frightening to me. She doesn't think they spent enough. And that's why the Great Recession, the return was 6 years or 5 years, depending on how you count it, right? It was a slow climb back. So she's like, damn their torpedoes, spend. I mean, she had the $1.9 trillion locked up, and she's already talking about the next 4 trillion. And now I hear people talking about the next 2 or 3 trillion behind that one. My God, what the hell are we going to be doing here, folks? Jesus.
Well, again, look at the GDP and, consider that income and how far can you lever that? So that's kind of what they're looking at. They're looking at the fact that, hey, we have the largest economy in the world. We have this huge GDP. We could lever that up far greater than we've been. Again, it's modern monetary theory. The other side of the coin is, and I heard some economists talking about this over the weekend, was, it's the Great Depression. Okay, so the other side of the coin is you should let the economy deflate. You should let the markets, take their course, because that's where you get economic expansion. The greatest economic expansion was after the Depression because they didn't do anything. So by doing this, you're artificially propping up the economy. It has to land at some point, and you can't have mass expansion when you've inflated everything. Stock market, okay? How much higher can it really go? At this point, how much more upside is there really? Real estate, okay? You're already getting pushback in the housing market. You're already getting pushback in the commercial market because, again, at the end of the day, you got to be able to service the debt when you're buying a property. So you can only push it so far. And we saw rates get about as low as they can get. So assets, were as inflated as they could possibly be. So by doing this, you're actually doing the opposite. You're not creating jobs. You're not creating expansion. You're actually keeping things at a level where they can't expand much further and they can only contract from here. So you're in this cycle. At some point, it has to land.
Yeah, this whole kicking the can down the road argument that we keep hearing about. And I think without question, I can say pretty confidently, with as long as she's in that position, the can's getting kicked. She has no interest in being in, she's not Paul Volcker, right? If you don't know who Paul Volcker is, folks, look it up. He's the guy who was in a powerful seat and took rates up to kind of break the back of inflation last time. Janet's not going to do that, right? So she's going to spend.
So the Great Recession. So she said we didn't spend enough, but we had a huge economic expansion from 2009-10 till coronavirus. Back last year about this time before it all hit. I mean, the economy had expanded greatly. We had very low unemployment, record low unemployment.
Record low, yeah.
Market was at all-time highs. And they didn't spend enough. So, I think this might be a dangerous road they're headed down because, again, the funding and the money is not going into the pockets that needed it the most. It's going in the wrong direction.
Yeah. This, I'll call it what it is. This is dangerous times, right? I'm in over this situation. The 1.9 trillion was probably needed, right? For me, it's all about getting us to the summer, right? Again, as we talked about in episode 1, I see the world opening up. I see brighter days ahead, all of that stuff. But damn, another 3 or 4 trillion. And what really pisses me off is they're already planting seeds for another 2 trillion after that. I mean, it's just frightening to think about. And again, as a labor economist, she's going to stare at U6 until she's blind. And right now, I think U6 is like 11.3 or something. So it's a problem, no question. So this has been a fun conversation. I look forward to number 3.